Cosmic laws. Perfection. Clear language is the hallmark of the channel communications through me which we have used to extract these 23 cosmic laws. An example is this April 6, 1960 communication that verifies the law of perfection. Zolanda, a member of the White Brotherhood, explained, "Man evolves in cycles. Man is more than a race. Man is a creation of divine thinking which evolves until it becomes the original thought, pure and substance only. Man constantly is changing into a higher realm of being. Man shall not cease evolving until each man shall become as pure as the original thought, which knows only the law of perfection." The spiritual hierarchy's message that God created man and all other things perfect, and that man created his own imperfection but retains his ability to become perfect again, has been transmitted to and recorded by all the world's religions. Here are a few examples. In Islam, the Sufis have the concept of the perfect human being who is any man, Muslim or otherwise, who has fully realized his essential oneness with the divine being in whose likeness he is made. In Buddhism, paramita, which is Sanskrit for perfection, are a set of virtues strived for in order to reintegrate with the transcendent absolute. In Hinduism, ultimate reality is perfection. Man is perfectible because Atman, the human spirit, is inseparable from Brahman, the perfect absolute. The Musar school, a Jewish meditative movement begun in the 1800s, teaches that perfecting oneself is an obligation. Every denomination in Christianity has formulated its interpretation of Jesus' precise instruction to humanity, "Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect." Religions place so much importance on the notion of man's ability to progress and return to perfection in spirit that Swedish theologian Ander Nygren states, "A religion which did not claim to make possible the meeting between the eternal and man, a religion which did not claim to be the bridge over an otherwise impassable gulf, would be a monstrosity." One valid reason it would be monstrous not to acknowledge perfection as a divine principle which can be lived was communicated by Sananda in April 1973. That which is based on error or misconception or conceit or ego has its day, but loses its impetus in time, and by the divine law of God cannot exist, for it has destroyed more than it has enhanced. By this divine law of truth and eternal perfection, it cannot exist. Here, then, is the universal principle which ensures that what is evil in our lives and in the world is only temporary. Error can never be permanent. Only those acts of man which are righteous can survive and can contribute to a stable, finished form. Also, this law rules out eternal damnation, since no one can remain eternally in error. The law of perfection convinces us that there is always hope. We can have faith that all action is concord with spiritual principles will work towards a final, perfect outcome. And what could possibly be more positive message? Let us look within ourselves and examine that this law means to us and how we personally are to express it. The last thing we want to do is to reject the principle of God. On June 1962, Sananda relayed how much the hierarchy values this law. Absolute correction means any disharmonious conditions are to be found, eliminated and replaced. We refuse to work outside of a perfect plan for a perfect planet under a perfect God consciousness. Everything we have ever attempted is to bring about this perfection in time, in space, and energy. Discuss whatever you need to discuss about, problems, but betray us not by thinking anything but the plan of perfection is absolutely mandatory. In the deepest part of our being, none of us ever wishes to betray our Father, Mother, Creator. Then how do we live the law of perfection? How are we to live all the laws of spirit perfectly? We may think that this law demands perfection immediately. Some psychological and metaphysical teachings claim that all is already perfect, that everything that happens to us individually and collectively is perfect because there is a perfect reason for it. By this logic, every experience, good or bad, is somehow perfect. This supposedly explains God's perfection. But our mortal will is only perfect when it is in harmony with Spirit's will. If it is not, there is imperfection. Therefore, not everything is perfect simply as it is. The dictionary confirms this. One meaning of perfection is the act or process of perfecting. Obviously, something that needs perfecting is not perfect. Perfection is a process that involves many steps and takes time. The law of growth and evolution, for example, demonstrates what perfection means. Under the law, trial and error are permissible in our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual development. We can make honest mistakes and still be within the law. This is true of our quest to understand and to act in conformance with every universal law. Therefore, we do not have to be perfect to be in harmony with the law of perfection. How long should the perfecting of self take? And what time frame should we envision? The hierarchy is indicated that no one will be able to demonstrate fully the transmutation of the four lower bodies, mental, emotional, physical, and soul, into the spiritual or light body before the second coming, which is expected in the beginning decades of the new millennia. In fact, it will take thousands of years to perfect all things on earth, that is, to transform all conditions here into fourth-dimensional spiritual purity. So let us have a realistic time frame. Many notable religious leaders, east and west, have claimed that God's grace alone, not man's action, can save him and bring him into perfection. For example, Christian theologian Martin Luther and John Calvin preached that neither man's free will, nor his love, nor any other human quality can lead to his perfection. Only God's grace can save him. In Japan, similar ideas about grace were taught by Honen and Shinran of the Pure Land sect of Mahayana Buddhism. But one component of Spirit's grace is its gift of free will to man. Consequently, we each are obligated to exercise our free will to erase all that is undesirable within us and in the world. The Hasidism of Judaism teach that although the laws of God, which they number at 613, must be absolutely adhered to at all times, unnecessary strictness in observing these laws also must be avoided. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov explains, "Serve God with simplicity, without sophistication and hair-splitting. You should not be overly strict and stringent, as it is written. Keep my decrees and laws, for if a man does them, he shall live by them." Leviticus 18:4. Our sages comment, "Live by them and do not die by them." In a humorous yet serious way, Rabbi Nachman and the sages taught that perfection is a process that takes time. It requires flexibility as well as vigilance. Otherwise, we defeat the very purpose of this law. For how can we become perfect if we kill ourselves trying? In December 1962 communication, Sananda Jesus exhorts us to be compassionate towards one another as we refine ourselves. You have found many errors, dense and diseased parts of your own thinking, your own beliefs, and your own conception. In this case, you have removed them. However, you also have known that many are encrusted with ideas and beliefs that are not easily removed, any more easily removed than parts of your own thought and conditions of life. How can we then condemn or hurt another? He who is flawless is not in any kingdom, to my knowledge, for all have perfection yet ahead. All who seek perfection find higher evolvements to work into. Therefore none can be the least satisfied with the status quo or present condition. Nothing then is completed. No man is finished where he is. Therefore I implore you, one and all, to seek the mercy you desire for your own light's experience. None who is sincere would wish to be condemned for seeking further proof, further understanding, and further love demonstrations. I ask all, therefore, all who hear and who understand, for more mercy unto his brother and sister on earth, and into other levels and dimensions connected and coordinated with the earth planet. Perfection also is defined as a person or thing that is the perfect embodiment of some quality. The word quality is singular, and that is what the hierarchy usually means when referring to perfection. In other words, our sole mission for any given lifetime may be only to perfect one talent or at most to work on a few. We need not burden ourselves thinking that we have to develop and perfect every single quality or talent that we lack. In one communication, Lord Maitreya gave the example of Sananda's incarnation as Gautama Buddha and as Jesus. In the incarnation of Gautama Buddha, he perfected within himself the understanding of God and the attunement with God consciousness. As Jesus, he discovered and perfected love for God and for all other creatures. To be true to our soul's mission, we must be clear about what faculties or talents we are to perfect in this incarnation. We cannot be everything to everyone. Only God can. We need not take on too much. We also must guard against working on talents already perfected. As John Mark channeled on June 1962, would you want two livers in the same body and no heart? Of course not. Nor would the Christ or Spirit, which is all-wise, duplicate itself, for this would not serve its end purpose of perfection. Who has not felt peer pressure in school, society, and workplace not to make mistakes, which is virtually the same thing as insisting that a person be perfect regardless of circumstance? Who has not been ridiculed or felt embarrassed as a child or as an adult when making a mistake? Let us not cave into these pressures by doing only those things which we already have mastered rather than developing other faculties which we are less adept and may be more vulnerable. The Bhagavad Gita states, by devotion to one's own particular duty, everyone can attain perfection. Let me tell you how. By performing his own work, one worships the Creator who dwells in every creature. Such worship brings that person to fulfillment. It is better to perform one's own duties imperfectly than to master the duties of another. By fulfilling the obligation he is born with, a person never comes to grief. No one should abandon duties because he sees defects in them. Every action, every activity is surrounded by defects as a fire is surrounded by smoke. Let us take courage and perfect that Spirit would have us perfect. God knows our sole mission and what duties are before us to perfect better than we do. Here is another valuable lesson evaluating how far we have progressed in the perfecting of a talent or a quality. We may not express perfectly now what we already have mastered in prior incarnations. Sananda explains in this April 1961 communication. Developing a talent, a faculty, or a virtue may take eons of time and incarnations, perhaps confining all those to one galaxy or every one planet until it became perfected. The soul or spirit then perhaps would concentrate on another facet. This may take the spirit or the soul into an entirely different set of conditions, vibrations, or manifestations. You would not be thinking of the first set of conditions and might not even be aware that they were stored up within the soul or spiritual records of that individualization of spiritual energy, that particular being. But when you put all the facets together, you would then have a creation of God that was equal to the role of a child of God, a true co-creator. We may not know about qualities we ourselves have perfected, and have even less knowledge about perfected traits in others. This is another reason for being merciful and compassionate in our evaluation of our own and others' spiritual evolution. On January 1961, John Mark channeled a description of what spiritual perfection entails. Liken it unto Jesus of Nazareth when he walked in that life. When his mission was revealed to him, there could not be in his mind anywhere the doubt of his subconscious, the fear of conscious activity, nor the entombment of his superconsciousness self. He was perfection incarnate in that he realized the source and the role of his subconscious. He was fearless and bold and loving and tender, demanding and forceful in his conscious action. He was completely subservient to the will of his superconsciousness, Christ self. Imperfect as we are, do we have a clear starting point by which we may begin the process of perfection? Yes. On May 1961, Jesus instructed us simply to call on the divine perfection that already is implanted within us. The way to restore the divine pattern is by dwelling on the divine pattern, by knowing in your heart and feeling most earnestly that the divine pattern is your natural heritage. This would apply to want on the physical, supply, or substance. This would apply to health, the pattern you're expressing in your body. It would apply to all your relationships with life, whether it be other people or the harmony you would feel in life itself, in your expression itself. It is true that the true child of God lives in a paradise or an Eden. In order to manifest that condition or perfection, one must recognize that he or she is truly a child of God, and all is perfect in that image. In spirit, all is perfect, all is powerful, therefore is a true child of God. When he or she would see disharmony or be in disharmony, all that a true child would do would be to ask that it be restored. According to the faith that one would feel for this truth, that is how quickly this harmony would be restored. In other words, if one had the faith instantly that this was one true state of being, instantly it would be restored. If the faith was weak and he or she needed proof and was insecure in this understanding, it would take a little time to work through one's own consciousness and manifest on or in one's own expression of life. In all of my ministry as Jesus of Nazareth, there was only one state of consciousness I was able to demonstrate. That was my divine right to be as a co-creator with God, as Son of God, which gave me equal rights with his or her perfection. Each of us has equal rights in God's perfection, yet we seem to know more about how imperfect we are rather than how perfect we are. Shouldn't we spend at least as much time knowing our divine perfection as our mortal imperfection? In a spring 1991 meditation, a friend who suffered from a medical condition received for her own healing the very words Sananda Jesus had expressed 30 years previously. 3 days ago, she wrote, I had the most profound meditation I've ever had. The words came for me to declare, it is my inherent divine right as a child of God to have perfect health. The beautiful image came to me as a golden column of rod coming down through my head. Gold light poured outward and upward from me. My physical body began to dissolve, and the reality of my being was visible to me. This pure light looked alien to me and was the most wonderful thing I'd ever seen. Oneness with God's perfection need not feel alien to us. Inevitably, we must accept this in every other cosmic law. In spirit, we are perfect. To know this perfection, we must experience perfection. Only then can we affirm the perfection of others. This is how we love God and love one another perfectly. My Nada Self channeled on October 1962, you may not know me, and I may not know you. I may not know how you serve. You may be unto me a stranger in some distant field, and I may be unto you no name and no conscious connection. Nevertheless, in spirit and in the Christ, all become united, one we serve. One body of light, one energy of force, we serve our Father, Mother, God, for we are the Son, and as the Son we cannot be separated. Every particle of the sonship is a part of the body that is whole. As Jesus Christ demonstrated, God cannot see error, confusion, or disease in the body of another individual. God cannot err in his or her Son, which is mankind. He or she sees only the wholeness of each cell, and each soul joined together and aligned with perfect harmony and balance. Therefore, with this concentration of the light and love of our Father, Mother, God, we are drawn together and become a whole aspect, a whole demonstration, a whole race returning in perfection, in love and in service, being one with one another, thereby loving one another, showing and demonstrating the love of God who created us one. Be therefore perfect, even as our Father in heaven is perfect.